What if I told you that during the Cold War, the CIA secretly supported a plan to detonate 213 nuclear bombs in the Egyptian desert? Not as an attack, not as a threat, but as a construction project. The plan was to use nuclear explosions to blast a 120-kilometer canal through solid rock, flooding a massive desert depression with seawater to create one of the world's largest artificial lakes practically overnight. It was backed by serious engineers, supported by government agencies, and came terrifyingly close to happening. It never did. But the dream did not die. Because Egypt is doing something almost as audacious. Look at satellite images. Giant green circles appearing in the desert. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Massive rivers carved through wasteland. Military installations. Enormous buildings rising from nothing. And when journalists investigate, people refuse to talk. Some seem afraid. Egypt is literally trying to flood the desert, transforming tens of thousands of square kilometers of barren wasteland. This is the story of Egypt's century-long obsession with reshaping reality itself, from CIA schemes and nuclear detonations to the massive construction happening right now, and why the rest of the world should be paying very close attention. Let's start with those mysterious green circles. When you first see them on satellite imagery, they do not look that impressive. But zoom in, and you realize each circle is hundreds of meters wide. Pull back, and you see them multiplying across the desert, like cells dividing under a microscope. NASA satellite images show most of these circles appeared within just the last decade. The Egyptian government calls this area the New Delta, a massive agricultural project meant to transform nearly 10,000 square kilometers of desert into productive farmland. Egypt desperately needs this to work. Here is why. The country is home to 116 million people, more than any other nation in the Arab world. By 2050, that number could hit 175 million. But here is the problem. Egypt is almost entirely desert. Only about 4% of the land can be used for agriculture. Nearly everyone lives crammed along a narrow strip beside the Nile River and up in the Nile Delta on the Mediterranean coast. It is one of the most densely populated regions on the planet. Food security has been precarious for years. More than 8% of the population is undernourished. 1 in 5 children suffers from stunted growth due to malnutrition. Egypt has to import most of its wheat, and in 2021, about 80% of those imports came from just 2 countries, Russia and Ukraine. Then Russia invaded Ukraine. Wheat shipments ground to a halt. Egypt's already fragile food situation spiraled into crisis. The New Delta project is supposed to fix this, boost domestic farming, create jobs, and make Egypt self-sufficient. At least that's the official story. But here is what most people do not know. This is not Egypt's first attempt to conquer the desert. Not even close. For over a century, Egyptian leaders have been obsessed with flooding the wasteland. Each ruler seems to need their own mega-project, something so massive it cements their legacy forever. In the 1960s, President Gamal Abdel Nasser launched the groundwork for the Toshka project. The plan was simple: reclaim a huge stretch of southern desert for farming, industry, and housing. by pumping water from man-made Lake Nasser through new canals. It was supposed to create 500,000 acres of farmland and relocate millions of people. President Mubarak revived and expanded it in the 1990s, billing it as the solution to Egypt's demographic and economic problems. The project failed spectacularly. Recent satellite images show scattered fields, but the promised megacities never materialized. Years of work, billions spent, almost nothing to show for it. Then there is the SAI project, announced in the late 1990s. It was another attempt to irrigate massive desert areas with a new canal system called the El Salam Canal. Part of it was actually built. Most of it never happened. The problems ranged from soil salinization to water pollution to coastal erosion. Every Egyptian ruler has tried this, and with few exceptions, every project has failed. But none of these projects can compare to the most audacious desert flooding scheme ever conceived, the Qattara Depression Project. Picture this: a massive natural lowland in the middle of the desert. At its deepest point, it sits 134 meters below sea level. The depression spans roughly 18,000 square kilometers. That is nearly the size of Lake Ontario, one of North America's Great Lakes. In the early 20th century, people began wondering, what if we flooded it? The idea first emerged in 1912 when German geographer Albrecht Penck drew up plans to dig canals from the Mediterranean Sea about 120 kilometers to the depression. Water would flow downhill, filling the basin and creating an enormous artificial lake. But Penck never got beyond dreaming. The scale was simply too massive for the technology of the time. In 1927, British geologist John Ball conducted the first real survey of the area. He confirmed the depression's depth and calculated that it could generate somewhere between 125 and 200 megawatts of hydroelectric power. Impressive for the era, though way below modern estimates. Ball also identified the key feature that makes the plan theoretically possible. The extreme desert heat would evaporate several meters of water from the lake surface every year. That evaporation means water could continuously flow into the depression, pass through turbines, and generate constant electricity. Then World War II arrived. The Qattara Depression became a battlefield rather than an engineering opportunity. It marked the southern limit of the battles of El Alamein. The terrain was impassable for tanks and military vehicles. After the war, interest resurged. This time, the interested party was not some lone scientist. It was the CIA. The year is 1957. The Suez Crisis has just shaken the Middle East. Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal, causing Britain and France to lose much of their regional influence. The United States was desperately trying to counter Soviet Union influence in the region. In this context, CIA Director Alan Dulles began developing strategies for fostering international collaboration through massive infrastructure projects. A memo declassified only in 2013 reveals the agency secretly proposed several audacious schemes, including building nuclear reactors on the Gaza Strip. They also proposed flooding the Qattara Depression. The CIA's logic was simple. Beyond the material benefits of changing the region's climate and providing settlement space, the project would pull President Nasser toward the United States and away from the Soviet Union. President Eisenhower ultimately rejected the proposal. The idea sank back into obscurity. But it was not dead. In the mid-1960s, German hydraulic engineer Friedrich Basler became obsessed with Katara. He spent more effort on the project than any other figure in its history. Basler was appointed by the German Federal Ministry of Economics to conduct a feasibility study. He eventually led an international board of directors working on the project, and he advised the Egyptian government directly starting in 1975. Basler transformed the concept. He dramatically increased the estimated power output from Ball's 200 megawatts to nearly 6,000 megawatts per year. And then he proposed something absolutely insane. Instead of digging canals the conventional way, Basler calculated that he could create 213 boreholes using nuclear explosions, each with an explosive yield of roughly 1.5 megatons. The bombs would blast a path from the Mediterranean to the depression, allowing seawater to flow naturally into the basin. This was not some crackpot theory. It was a serious proposal, backed by detailed engineering calculations. The nuclear option would cost far less than conventional construction techniques. The plan called for forcibly evacuating about 25,000 residents. Basler even proposed an alternative, a longer canal to divert part of the Nile River that lay 300 kilometers away. But the political reality proved insurmountable. The United Nations was pushing for nuclear weapon-free zones in the Middle East. The Limited Test Ban Treaty of 1963 made nuclear explosions problematic. The risk of nuclear fallout was already a major international concern after tests in Nevada and elsewhere. Despite proving the project was theoretically possible and making huge leaps in understanding the logistics, Katara was once again shelved. Too big, too daunting, too expensive. So let's return to those green circles in the satellite images. The New Delta project that is actually happening right now. To grow anything in the desert, you need massive amounts of water. The New Delta draws from multiple sources: groundwater, polluted water from a lake near Alexandria, and most importantly, the Nile itself. The project includes several enormous canals. The first runs about 42 kilometers from the Nile's Rosetta branch to the eastern limits of the New Delta. The second is even more impressive, 114 kilometers long, carrying 3.5 billion cubic meters of water annually. In some places, the water has to be pumped over 100 meters uphill. They are taking water from the Nile at an altitude of 16 meters and pumping it up to 120 or 130 meters. That requires enormous energy. At the heart of the New Delta sits Hammam, completed in June 2023. It is the world's largest wastewater treatment plant, sprawling across 320,000 square meters. It can purify up to 7.5 million cubic meters of wastewater per day, enough to meet the daily water needs of 24 million Americans. The project also taps the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer System, the world's largest fossil groundwater reservoir. It stretches beneath 4 countries and holds somewhere between 150,000 and 370,000 cubic kilometers of water, more than the Nile would discharge over 500 years. But there is a catch. This water has been trapped for thousands of years. It is not being replenished. And the deeper you go, the saltier it gets. Eventually, the water pumped up could become too saline to use. That is where those green circles come in. They are created by center pivot irrigation systems, water sprinklers that sweep across fields like clock hands. You find these systems all over the world, in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United States. The Egyptian government claims it is sustainably developing agriculture, but experts disagree. When you look at satellite images, you see circles of green surrounded by desert. Beneath the topsoil where crops grow, it is still desert. Nothing has fundamentally changed. Remove the irrigation systems, and it all turns back to sand. So how much does all this cost? Nobody knows. Not really. The New Delta is run by a government agency reporting directly to the Egyptian Air Force. It is completely off budget. A black box. In 2021, the project was presented with a budget of roughly $10.2 billion. By May 2025, President El-Sisi said infrastructure alone would cost between $9 and $13 billion. That is just infrastructure, not including ongoing operational costs. Running agriculture in the middle of the desert is absurdly expensive. You need processing plants, warehouses, road networks, cold storage, grain silos, and artificial rivers. According to reports, the longest canal alone cost around $5 billion. And here is the real problem. Some earlier studies concluded that if you have to lift water more than 30 meters, it becomes uneconomic. You simply cannot grow crops valuable enough to cover the energy costs. But the New Delta pumps water over 100 meters in places. The project was pitched as Egypt's answer to food insecurity. But what has it actually achieved? In one sense, it has been successful. You can see crops coming out of it, but much of the harvest never reaches Egyptian plates. It is exported. According to the government, Egypt now exports over 400 different agricultural products to more than 160 countries. In 2023 alone, a record 7.5 million tons of produce left the country, generating $8.8 billion in revenue. Top sellers include fruits, vegetables, and nuts. Egypt is increasingly focusing on high-value export crops, and the New Delta plays a central role. The logic goes like this. Why grow wheat, which requires massive amounts of water and land, and which Egypt cannot produce competitively, when you can grow citrus and other high-value crops, export them for far more money, and use that revenue to import wheat? It's what most countries in this situation would do. But the revenue from these multi-billion-dollar projects does not seem to reach ordinary Egyptians. 2/3 of the population live at or below the poverty line. Food security remains fragile. The currency has collapsed. The country is drowning in debt. Most of the money flows back into the state. And one thing the state consistently invests in is weapons. Egypt has wars on multiple borders, with Sudan to the south and Gaza to the east. There has been violence to the west. The military justifies massive defense spending. Meanwhile, the people struggle. Maybe the real value of these mega projects is not about food at all. They generate headlines. They distract from real problems. The regime of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi gets to present itself as capable and proactive. You can make announcements, unveil artist renditions, claim credit, and hopefully follow through with something massive to show off. On the surface, it looks like a great answer to intractable problems related to population growth and poverty. Problems that would be far more difficult to address through systemic institutional reform. It is clear why unveiling large-scale projects would be more tempting than building functioning institutions. Earlier this year, the government unveiled its latest mega project, Ras El Hikma City, a brand new city rising from the desert. In just 5 years, it is expected to feature luxury apartments, a yacht harbor, skyscrapers up to 80 stories tall, and a free economic zone. The era of desert megaprojects is far from over, but there is one critical factor that could doom all of these projects: water. In February 2022, Ethiopia completed a massive gravity dam on the Blue Nile, the Nile's most important tributary. The dam's walls reach as high as the pyramids of Giza. Ethiopia plans to double its energy production with this dam. For Ethiopia, it is a milestone. For Egypt, it is an existential threat. Egypt and Sudan fear they will receive far less water in the future. That kind of control gives Ethiopia enormous bargaining power. Relations between the countries are extremely tense. The Nile is Egypt's lifeline. It has to keep flowing for Cairo's ambitious plans to have any chance of success. And with them, any hope for a stable food supply. Which brings us back to the Qattara Depression. Interest in the project has resurged in recent years. Several converging factors make it relevant again. First, Egypt's energy needs are exploding. In July 2025, the country set a record for the highest daily electrical load in its history, 39.5 gigawatts. The surge caused massive strain on the power grid, leading to 12-hour outages in Giza, where the pyramids sit. Second, water scarcity and geopolitical tensions with Ethiopia over the Nile have made alternatives more attractive. Third, technology has improved dramatically since Friedrich Basler's days. New remote sensing data and hydrological models allow better quantification of evaporation, basin morphology, and overall feasibility. Fourth, the clean energy boom has sparked interest in lithium mining via salt pans. A secondary use of the Qattara Lake could be the resulting salt and evaporite basin, potentially enabling unprecedented mining projects. In 2023, Egypt announced it was partnering with EG Consulting, an Elite Capital and Company Limited, to conduct a new feasibility study of the Qattara project. No results have been publicized yet, but let us imagine it happens. If completed, Qattara would still be by far the largest artificial lake in world history. The current record holder is Lake Volta in Ghana, created in 1965, spanning 8,502 square kilometers. Yet it is still less than half the size Qattara would be. Modern proposals suggest filling the depression in 2 stages: a fill stage, then a continuous flow stage using canals, tunnels, and possibly pipelines to convey water from the Mediterranean. At full capacity, the lake would contain roughly 1,300 cubic kilometers of water, with the surface maintained about 60 meters below sea level. With pumped storage capability, the hydropower output might reach 4 to 6 gigawatts of continuous generation, making it one of Africa's largest non-fossil energy sources. Even at record demand levels, Qattara could potentially power 15% of Egypt's entire grid. The extreme heat offers the unique benefit of high evaporation for continuous filling, but it also makes large-scale population growth unlikely. Still, the area might see new towns, mining communities, industrial zones, and tourist destinations along the lakefront. The project would also become one of the world's largest evaporite mining zones, exporting industrial salt, potash, magnesium, bromine, and possibly significant quantities of lithium. But creating a salt lake this size would have enormous repercussions. Humidity would likely increase. Minor microclimate shifts might occur. There is significant risk to desert ecosystems that depend on existing oases, which would be contaminated by salinity. The base of the depression consists of porous rock. Infiltration of saline water into the water table could lead to large-scale contamination of the Nubian aquifer, the same groundwater source the new delta relies on. Making this groundwater extremely salty could jeopardize Egypt's entire agricultural system. The project would probably cost tens of billions of dollars and take 1 to 2 decades from start to finish. The geopolitical impact for Egypt would be enormous. The country would see a major boost in energy independence and gain a powerful new bargaining asset in North Africa and the Arab world. The project would create thousands of jobs and likely generate billions in revenue. In a country where 1 in 3 people live below the poverty line, that matters. For more than a century, there have been those who insist the Qattara project is impossible, and there have been those who insist it can be done. As for the new delta, well, it's happening right now, whether it makes economic sense or not. Green circles are spreading across the desert. Artificial rivers are being carved through sand. Billions of dollars are flowing into projects that may never deliver on their promises. Egypt is literally trying to reshape reality. They are flooding the desert, pumping water uphill, and even imagining nuclear explosions that would create seas in the Sahara. Whether these projects represent visionary engineering or desperate folly, one thing is certain: they are changing the face of the earth in ways we are only beginning to understand. The dream of greening the desert hinges on a single precious resource: water. And in a world of climate change, population growth, and international tension, that resource is becoming more valuable and more contested every single day. What happens next will determine not just Egypt's future, but potentially the future of the entire region.